All we see is Jay Martin.
We're working on it. Buff is working on it. Oh, we can.
Cheryl's good?
Okay, it's like in and out. You can hear me.
You can go up the next row up
Okay.
and then they can cross
I'm
over.
sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully we stay good here. All right. So a lot's going on, right? Who's feeling scared? Nervous, anxiety, whatever? No? Good. No. About the lawsuit and the changes and all this stuff. Anybody? Well, good. Great. Well, if you are, it's okay. Who's using a buyer broker agreement right now? All right. Perhaps a buyer.
Honestly, in 10 years or 8 years in general real estate, it's the first time someone signed one, and it was because it's another agent. So she used to be an agent, she knows about them, she's like, yeah, just send it with the contract.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to talk about this. I've been in real estate 9 years. I've been using it since day one. I've sold probably about 300 houses and I have never not used a buyer broker agreement. And in Washington State, all of our rules changed 2 years ago because we got ahead of this, and everything that was just announced, we implemented 2 years ago in Washington State. So removal of compensation from the MLS, required buyer broker agreement, no more co-op compensation. Basically, our MLS was like, oh crap, this is coming. We might as well just change it now. Changed it 2 years ago. The only change in my business that I saw, the only thing I lost one time, of course, Lennar and D.R. Horton were like, awesome, we don't have to pay you guys. So we're gonna offer you 0 for you buyer's agents. So one time I did have a VA client who wanted to purchase a Lennar home and there was just nothing we could do about it. So I ended up losing that client. So that's the only thing that I can think of. But I have some points to talk about that today and some changes that we should see with that. I like collaborative. I don't like to just stand up here and talk to you. So if you got questions, just shout them out. If you have a comment, just shout them out. But I'm going to try to go through as much as we can here. I've been talking to a lot of different counterparts. I'm just going to try to get you guys as much information as we can. Ken Gatos is having trouble with that. Ken Gatos, I guess. I don't know if we can help him, if Amber can help him. Okay. So yeah, this isn't the first change in our industry. It might, every time I feel like we have one, we get scared, but the first time the buyer's agency came out, that was scary. I remember when my mom was doing this and the MLS came out and like it moved to the internet and she was off of her map systems and her super key and she moved to the Bluetooth super key. But there's Zillow iBuying was terrifying. There's been a market crash. Who's been in it since before 08? Okay, I would have been scared then. I wasn't in it then, but that would have been a really scary time to be in it. My mom was in it then. I watched her have to completely shift her entire business. Global pandemic. Yeah.
You used to have to go to the other real estate agent offices and get the keys to the houses.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. We had COVID-19. I mean, we've been through some stuff. We're gonna be okay if you're scared. I skipped too fast. And I just wanted to share this, that no amount of anxiety changes the future. So if you are panicked or you do have anxiety about it, that's not gonna change the future. So try to calm down some of that anxiety if you can. Quick disclosures, I'm not, mainly because this is being recorded, I'm not an attorney. Murray is your broker, not me. I am a broker, but I'm not technically your broker. And the biggest thing is this settlement hasn't been approved by the court. So don't get scared too much. I mean, the court, this could stay tied up. I know there's been a date set of July 24th, and we're gonna have to do all this stuff. The DOJ still has to approve this, so this may or may not go through. We don't know for sure just yet. Everybody good? Main thing is I'm not a lawyer. Okay. Things to talk about right now. So there's always gonna be a need for housing. Always. There's always gonna be a need for home ownership. People are always gonna buy and sell. There is always gonna be a need for you. I do not personally see buyer representation or buyer's agents going away, like some people are already talking about. I think that's wild to even think that. If you came in and you don't have a copy of a buyer broker agreement, it's right here if you'd like one. If you don't have a value proposition, who doesn't have one? We did a class on it. Some of us worked on it. Who doesn't have a value proposition? Nobody doesn't, or you just don't want to say so. It's okay. It's all right. You don't have to admit it. If you don't have a value proposition, get one. I'm going to show you a stat. I think it's 89% of agents don't have a buyer presentation. Who doesn't have a buyer presentation? So only 27% of agents don't have a listing presentation. 89% don't have a buyer presentation. If you don't have a buyer presentation, right now is a really good time to get one. You're going to be required to get a buyer broker agreement signed, just like a listing agreement signed. You have a listing presentation, so you can get that listing agreement signed. You need to get a buyer presentation, so you can get that buyer broker agreement signed. And we can talk about that and what that looks like.
We need a class, we can make a class.
Absolutely. Yep. Got to get that done. And here's my little tip on it. We have an issue.
On the value
Yes.
proposition point, I just
Yes.
want to remind everybody that on the 26th we're going to be streaming a class that Gary Keller is going to be doing on your value.
Yeah.
Defining your value. I didn't know if you were going to mention that or not.
No, thank you.
And I
Great.
attended one of his first classes and it's
Great. Perfect.
March 26th at 1:00.
It's like a 4-hour class.
Don't put a ton of time and effort into this stuff either, too, guys. Like the time block. That writing a value proposition should take an hour, maybe max. Like max. ChatGPT. Help me write a realtor buyer's value proposition. Like ChatGPT.
Also, right after that class, boot camp at 6, I'm doing the buyer's part of boot camp at 6 o'clock that night on Tuesday night at the 26th at 6.
Perfect.
So you
Great.
do Gary's class, hang out, have dinner here, and then.
Yeah. That's
and then do
perfect.
Boot camp, because it just happens to be at the same time. Like
Exactly.
right after.
So to meet with a buyer first and to sign an agreement is the professional thing to do. If that's not been your practice, that's okay. But that's how we should think about this. Just like we meet with a seller before we list their house and put their property on the market, and we sign an agreement with them and we discuss compensation and we discuss the process. We should think about it the same way to meet with a buyer. We should meet with the buyer first, sign an agreement. That's the professional thing to do. And clarity is really better than our current route. I was meeting with a colleague of mine back on the West Coast this morning, and they said it a really good way. I think that there's, right now there's a route we've been doing to work with buyers, and we're going to get there the same way. This is just a different route, and it really is going to be a more clear route. I've enjoyed using the buyer broker agreement personally. It allows me to have clear conversations with people. It allows me to explain where I get compensated from. It allows me to talk about my obligations to them and their obligations to me. It's a commitment with each other. And then I really think this is going to come down to our ability to communicate how real estate is done as well. So, how?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So you mentioned we should start meeting with buyers like we do sellers when we list their home. So we meet a seller, we get a listing agreement signed, and sellers are bound to use us as their listing agent. And if they want to cancel, there's either repercussions. Either they have to pay a termination fee or we don't allow them to withdraw. So with a buyer's broker agreement, can that be terminated at any time by the buyer, or do both parties have to agree to terminate it?
As it stands, currently one party can terminate it, doesn't require both parties to. And that termination, that buyer would owe you compensation. I'm not sure who's asking the question. Sorry, I can't see it, but Andre, perfect. So you, as it stands, you would essentially take them to court, basically. That's how you would have to pursue them for the commission if it were to be breached. In my opinion, that's gonna change. That because you would be taking them to court for the co-op compensation. There's not gonna be co-op compensation anymore, so I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. Right now, your compensation in a buyer's broker comes technically from the listing agent cooperating with you and giving you a portion of their commission. That's not gonna be the way anymore. Co-op compensation is gonna go away. I think you're gonna be able to pursue the compensation if you had a broker agreement in a couple of different routes. Through the buyer, whoever's offering it potentially, possibly through the seller. But yeah, right now, one person can exit it. So the buyer could cheat on you, essentially. I've been doing it for 9 years. I've had one buyer cheat on me and I did not sue them because I just didn't want to. It's not my practice. Does that answer the question? There's a lot still unknown. So some of this stuff, we're gonna be figuring this out. I personally, and so does, I met with the president of Florida Realtor Association. This is gonna get changed. This broker agreement, the buyer broker agreement, it's gonna get revised and it's gonna look a lot cleaner and a lot better than it does right now, which is good for you guys. So that's gonna answer that question a little more when this gets revised. Hopefully it'll go to two parties will have to acknowledge to let somebody out of it, more than just one party. A little bit of a run-on answer,
So
sorry.
is this just for one address? You have to have them sign in one?
Nope.
if you show them
No,
one
we're gonna talk about that. You could put the area, you could put Florida. The state of Florida, yeah.
No.
You had a question?
Yeah.
Somebody said
No,
something.
I'll keep.
I
it
make
simple.
mine as vague as possible, honestly. It'll say the state of Florida for
Yeah.
location, property, it'll be, all, you know, I'll put all of it, any property that's in there. Yeah, I make it as vague as possible so that I can have all properties and all fields.
I heard that. Okay, perfect. I heard Kevin's comment. We're gonna talk about that. Kevin wants to be exclusively a listing agent. We're gonna talk about that, because I'm sure some people are gonna feel that way.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how do we get here? There's a class action lawsuit started in the state of Missouri. There's rumors that honestly this started by a particular group of agents. Who knows? And it was about a conspiracy to inflate commission and price fixing, which is not a free market. Why is it price fixing? Because it's co-op compensation right now. So if I'm the listing agent and Buff is the buyer's agent, it looks like we're cooperating together to make sure we get 6%. It looks like we're in a conspiracy to inflate commission. That's what they think. That's what has pushed forward. It's gone a lot farther than anybody really thought it would. The NAR is involved. People have a lot of opinions about NAR right now. This is being recorded, so you can ask me later. There's a lot of brokerages involved. Most of them have settled. Keller Williams has settled. Now there's been a verdict, and then there's a whole lot of copycat lawsuits. So folks in other sellers in other states are copycatting this same lawsuit. That's why we got plenty. Come on in. You sit right here. I don't bite. There's a lot of copycat lawsuits. That's why this settlement, honestly, as a former brokerage owner, I am so excited about this because this prevents copycat lawsuits from coming up. In the 5 years that I owned brokerage, any of my former sellers in my brokerage service could come up right now. And you know, this is gonna protect any brokerage that was a member of the national system. So in a way, it's nice, although it may seem scary. Does it make sense how we got here?
No.
No? Okay. So I,
Isn't it true though that in some places, that you would say to an agent, you need to at least give X number of percentage to the buyers?
Yeah.
I'm so confused
Yeah.
now, who's the buyer?
yeah, buyer's agent, selling agent, whatever you
Yeah,
wanna
that
call
you
it.
had to give them so much.
Yeah.
It says in our rules at this moment, or did yesterday, that if you didn't give them something, you couldn't put it in the MLS.
Right.
And that is,
right?
that's how we got. to
Yep.
that.
So the MLS is a part of this too. The MLS, you know, the whole reason you have to put something in the MLS is so that a buyer's agent can be offered compensation. If they want compensation, it has to be through the MLS. Is that gonna go away? Possibly. Is the NAR gonna go away? Possibly. The MLS may go away. Those are the big questions out there right now that I don't have the answers to you, and no one's gonna have those answers right now. Again, how we got here is part of NAR's big thing about buyer's representation is free. That's a big reason as to why we got here. Sellers finally got ticked off that why should I have to compensate an agent who is not working for me? Most states do not have transaction broker like you all. Most states have buyer's agents and listing agents, and they don't cross together. So sellers feel like, why should I have to compensate somebody that owes no duties to me whatsoever? Of course, we know the benefits of what they're bringing to the seller, but that's neither here nor there because they got ticked off about it.
You're gonna pay the closing costs.
Sure.
We're gonna say, nope, we're gonna
Yeah.
pull in the closing costs. You're gonna pay it one way or the other.
And basically, how we got this far, honestly, is the DOJ really just took this to heart and really wanted to pursue this. What's interesting, I heard from somebody this morning, is that these hundreds of millions of dollars and all these payouts, which is supposed to make our industry more transparent and more clear, and most of that money is gonna go to the attorneys that are on this case. So there's a little interesting about what we make and what we charge, but. And
So the MLS will go away then, we have to advertise through Zillow, we have to do our own advertising at that point. Because
through,
right now MLS and our Keller Williams work together, right?
sure.
We do it
Yeah.
out to all these.
Is the MLS really gonna go
Search
away?
engines.
I haven't, I doubt it. The MLS
no.
They're
is
just
such a
gonna, they're just
major.
gonna shift and pivot.
They're all, right, they're just gonna, again, we did this 2 years ago in Washington. The MLS didn't go away. We just changed our rules. This seems a lot scarier than it is. I've been doing it for 2 years in Washington. It's just clearer conversations. I actually prefer it. We're just having more open and clear conversations. It is going to weed out some folks that probably can't have those conversations, that have a harder time.
I'm more worried it's
Um,
gonna weed
so
out
not working
buyers
for you?
who can barely afford it.
That's right.
And VA.
Sure.
What
gonna talk
is
about
the
VA.
Department of Justice gonna do about the VA?
I'm actually working with the general right now on that. My husband's retired military. It's a huge passion of mine that VA buyers have fair representation. So I'm working with the general right now. I'm trying to get this up to Congress, but there's a lot of talk about that already, about
Okay, because they're
that
the
being
people I worry
fixed. For sure, yeah.
But I really, don't you think that the lenders are going to lobby to make sure that since this is a national thing,
Yes.
it's not a state-driven thing, that they're gonna start looking at how to handle these fees and
Yep, they are. They already are. I have a slide about that too, how Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is already in discussions on how can we make this fair for everyone. And it should likely be allowed to be offered in buyer's closing costs. That they're allowed to wrap it in, even if they are VA or are on some type of government loan. So what happened on Friday, the NAR settlement, released all of its members in it to try to solve the issue. They stated new practices and new ways to do business, new rules. We're gonna break it down a little bit. Judge still has to approve it, not official. That's something to remember here. What we know so far, like I said, we're gonna get to the same destination, but in a slightly different route. Co-op commission will no longer be posted in the MLS. And every broker will sign a contract when working, every buyer will sign a contract when working with an agent. That's how it stands right now. Could change.
What do you mean? Oh.
Sorry, multiple questions.
Seller will pay in three and.
No. Nope. If currently as it stands, if the seller wants to pay compensation to a buyer's agent, you're not gonna be allowed to put it in MLS. You're gonna be allowed to put it on your own website. So like Keller Williams website, you can put it on your website's listing.
Can I clarify
Yeah.
that though? This is all when it goes into effect.
Not now.
So
Yeah,
currently,
not now, but sellers.
don't change the way you're doing things for now. Am I correct? on that?
Absolutely.
If and when that is becoming
Yeah,
true in MLS, MLS will make the change.
Right.
into how you enter it,
That
so
should've been
don't,
another part of my,
Listing agreements will change.
all that
Yeah.
at that point will change,
that
yes.
should
For
be
now,
another
we're
part of
doing
my
everything.
disclosure, and if you don't listen to anything else, just listen to this. The only things to change today, you guys can listen, sorry. The only thing to change today is to make sure you get real comfortable with the buyer broker agreement as it stands right now. Try to start using it, get yourself a buyer presentation, and work on your value proposition. That's all you need to change today. This stuff is coming down the pipeline maybe in July, if this gets approved. And by that point, you will have training from the NAR, from KW, from us, everybody, on what exactly to do. It's not anything you need to do.
However, the
right this
upside
second.
is, a bunch of agents who are not used to doing anything have now jumped out of the pool and are leaving your set of listings alone, and you'll have more people to work with, because they're all leaving. There's a lot of people walking away, and that's kind of a good thing for the rest of us who are here for the right reasons.
So if this all
There's a-
happens, so if this all happens on this year, agreement will change.
If it's what, sorry?
If this all happens on this year, agreement will change, of course, the
Yes.
verbiage on the percentage.
Yep.
What we
Forms
already-
are definitely gonna change, for sure, yeah.
Right now.
So rule number one, as it's proposed right now, there was 5 rules taken away from this, basically. Eliminate and prohibit any requirement by VNAR, MLS, member boards that listing brokers or sellers must make offers of compensation to buyer brokers or other buyer representatives. And eliminate any prohibit any requirement that such offers, if made, must be blanket. So what does that mean? Basically, I have a little thing for you here. This is talking about co-op compensation. So before, it was seller to listing agent. Listing agent split with buyer's agent. Here's the buyer. New way. Seller to listing agent. Seller would pay the buyer's agent directly, or buyer would pay buyer's agent directly. When I say directly, I don't mean like literally directly. I don't mean like they're gonna write them a check and it's not gonna go through escrow. So don't mean to confuse you there. It's still gonna go through escrow and all that. There's no more cooperation fees. So the seller is going to offer to pay the listing agent. Maybe that's 3%. And the seller can offer to pay the buyer's agent 3%.
Or
Or-
a total of both, right?
Or what?
A total of both.
Absolutely, yep, that's step number 3. So like that's option number 1. Option number 2 is the buyer can pay. Or the third option is that the seller and the buyer could pay the buyer's agent. They could split it. So it's just doing away with, we're gonna charge 6%, and I hate that the news is all like, 6% is going away. 6% is not going anywhere. Who said 6%? I've done 7% commission before. I've done 10% commission. Whoever said it's 6%? It's not right. It's not going away. It's going away that the seller must pay the listing agent, who must split it with the buyer's agent.
Is there something in here that says they're getting 3% from the buyer unless the seller's agent, or unless the seller's giving them 1% and then they're giving.
That's when the-
That's what I'm going to see. I hope to see revised here. That's what we changed in Washington. So if our buyer's agency agreement in Washington stated, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna work with Erin, she's my buyer, we have this conversation, and I put on here 2.5%. I'm not gonna take any less than 2.5%, or maybe I put 3%. Our purchase and sale agreements in Washington changed. It was on the first page of the contract now, about who is getting paid from, how is the buyer's agent getting paid, from where, and how much. So if the seller was offering 3%, and Erin and I had an agreement of 2.5%, in our agreement, I stated that if it offered anything extra, I would get that extra. I could also have given it to Erin as closing costs if I wanted to. A lot of things need to change, like our ones in Washington.
So you would have got 5.5%?
So as a buyer's agent, I would have got 3% if the seller was offering me 3% for my representation.
And the buyer would give you anything.
The buyer wouldn't give me anything. So it's gonna start, hopefully it works like this. Erin's my buyer. I know it's confusing.
Is there a place where we can get a copy of these 5 rules that are coming down?
Sure, I am happy to send you these slides too. Yep, this is just my interpretation of the 108-page settlement.
Can we get a copy of the
You can Google that too, but yeah, I can send you that, yeah,
I believe somebody posted that in the closed group, in our
sure.
closed group, a PDF of it.
Yeah,
You
it
can-
was
Yeah,
really long,
You had a
yeah,
question?
yes, so.
I'm finding that some listings, people are like, I'm so excited, I'm gonna make more money. And, I won't have to pay that seller's agent. So I think, I'm hoping that there's more education and that the public gets to have some.
And that's our job. That's another thing to take away from today. It's our job to educate sellers. One thing you should be doing, taking away from today, is educating your sellers now. Sure, they don't have to pay a buyer's agent. Where are they gonna get a buyer from? Who's gonna represent that buyer? Who's gonna help that buyer through the process? Who's gonna write their contract? Who's
Take
gonna,
care of the first time buyer or the veteran.
exactly, who's gonna walk them through that process? You.
So I'm going to, as a buyer's agent, I'm going to the seller, and you're saying on MLS that the commission is not to be put 3% to selling agent, right?
Yes.
So I would go and write a contract and put that I'm getting paid. Well, I will have a conversation with the selling agent and say, is the seller willing to pay 3% or 2.5%? And it's like basically a negotiation.
Yes.
And
And/or it's already stated somewhere. On the agent's website, people are talking about showing time might allow it. There's a lot of discussion right now on where it might be put. That if a seller if the listing agent met with the seller and the seller upfront was willing to pay a buyer's agent, when it goes on the market, there's already discussions on where it could be put.
so
If
as
not
soon as
being
we get under contract and I say, hey, you're gonna pay me 2.5%, that's is written, like they can't go back and change or anything like that, because I'm just
It would
kind of worried that,
and then it's gonna be before you go under contract. You're not gonna be writing a contract for a buyer and not knowing where and how you're gonna get compensated. That's a waste of your time, right?
yeah, no,
So-
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, okay, so it's not written, but
It's gonna be written. It's going to change. It's going to change.
cause it's just a lot of moving parts.
Exactly.
Are there
Yep.
really people that take listing agreements and don't educate their sellers? I'm just curious. It baffles me if that's the
Well,
case.
probably. There's a lot of agents out there that probably are not educating their sellers
crazy.
on it.
Educate sellers, please.
There's a lot of companies that don't educate their
Yeah.
agents.
Right,
Remember that.
there's a lot of, I mean, you
You're
pass
in a
your
unique
test and you can
situation.
sell houses without any restrictions in some brokerages, so with no oversight, with no direction.
And so because if the seller is let's say there is no selling agent and a buyer's coming directly to me and like the 6% or whatever, like I'm keeping all of that, like, is that what it is? Like, are we keeping all of the 5 or 6%?
So you would be
Is
a
it
dual
same?
agent in that
Yeah,
case?
so are they changing anything on that?
I hope I hope they follow what we did in Washington. We're on the listing agreement, we had 3 sections. We have 3 it says compensation, and then there's 3 breakouts, basically. Me, listing broker, how much am I getting paid? That's right up front. Are you gonna pay a buyer's agent anything? Yes or no? If so, how much? If we don't end up with a buyer's agent because they come directly to me, how much am I gonna get compensated? So a lot of times mine was 3 or 3.5, I charge 3.5 for listings. How much are we paying a buyer's agent? And then if I represent both sides, well, now I'm getting 6%. I'm not getting 3.5. If I'm doing both sides, I need more. Obviously, that's up to you all and your clients and all of that. That's not, does that make sense?
Mhm.
Hopefully, the Florida, forms change in that direction. That's what we don't know yet.
So can I ask about this?
Sure, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Carl, I'm sorry.
So in that case, that means buyers is just gonna. with
Go
Zillow and
directly.
Everything out there, they're just gonna skip past the.
Right,
They're gonna go right to the selling agent, right?
Possibly.
yeah.
That's why we're gonna need more education. I think you guys are panicking and in what?
No,
It's not a panicking, but it's just, not panicking, but
No, no one did any of that in Washington, and I know that it's much more on the news now than it was there, but it was all over the news in Washington when we did this. The same thing happened. And 2 years ago, when we changed all the rules in Washington, the news, Facebook, everywhere was, you don't have to pay 6% anymore if you're a seller in Washington state. You don't have to pay a buyer's agent. Da, 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 da. The same thing happened 2 years ago when we changed all these rules. Nothing changed. Buyers were still hiring realtors. Sellers were still paying buyer's agents. Nothing changed. I lost one deal to Lennar because of course, what Pierre Burton said, oh, we're paying. We're not paying.
Washington, we're on a great state of Florida.
Yeah, you know, try to have an open mindset of that this is going to work out. The forms are gonna change in your favor. Cause what's your alternative? I mean, if
Can I
you,
ask you one
Yeah.
question about Washington? On this particular form, there is a retainer fee.
yes,
Because.
I would put 0.
What if, you know, they can't find a house that they like, or if they decide not to go? So.
That's up to you guys personally, how you wanna operate
Do
that.
they do
I-
it in Washington?
No, we do not do retainers. Nope. We don't penalize people that can't find a house or whatever, or something like that, that don't end up buying. No, we don't. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
I'm from my office, and they're listening. When you said you did this 2 years ago in
Yeah.
Washington, the big difference, I'm curious if the big difference
Yeah.
is, again, this morning, I'm watching the news, Good Morning America,
Yeah.
and they're still talking about, it. I'm like, oh my God, they won't stop talking about this. So I think it wasn't on the
No,
national
it's the
level.
national news, for sure. But, I mean, you know, the market crash is national news, the global pandemic is national news. You know,
This is
things
not
happen in the
just
news.
affecting Florida, this is affecting.
Right, we'll all have to worry about it. Yep.
We're just a shiny new toy right now.
Yeah.
So, although you're saying that the judge hasn't even settled on her, it's not for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The news media won't stop talking about it. So our sellers are like, oh, I don't have to pay.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe if we could get some scripts for.
Yep, I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to some scripts on how to talk to sellers, how to educate sellers, some advice on that for sure. Yes. Somebody on Zoom had a
Cheryl White has a question on Zoom.
Cheryl.
Hey. I think it's New Year's.
Remix.
Sorry. Oh, well, let me just mute mine then. How about that?
We can't hear you.
Mute your phone or your speakers. Oh.
That's okay. You can ask it. Okay, or drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
Cheryl, if you wanna drop your question in the chat. Alright, I'm gonna keep rolling because we are already. where's
It's
the-
right there.
Oh, thanks.
Playing with it.
No, I can't see it, maybe. Help me get to the next slide, sorry. Okay, we kind of already talked about this. This whole shindig here just says that the making of offers of compensation on the MLS is going to stop. So compensation can't be on the MLS. How that's gonna be, how we were doing in Washington is brokerage websites. We were doing it on showing time. We were texting, we were calling, we had in the supplements, we had an addendum with a link to, basically our website, and then they could see our compensation there. I don't know how that's gonna be. That's one thing I don't know. Where compensation is gonna be, how it's gonna be allowed with the buyer broker. Compensation is definitely going to still be offered to buyer's agents. I don't know where as of this moment. So I can't answer that question, but we will figure it out.
I get to Cheryl's question.
Yeah.
Cheryl's question is, so can we add the commission in the showing time confirmation? You just answered my question.
Can we officially do that right now? I don't know that. That will be, that's gonna come out. Is it gonna be allowed in showing time? It was allowed where I was. Is it going to be allowed moving forward in the future? I don't know the answer to that one just yet. Okay, what's next? There's some things I'm not gonna know, guys. I'm just trying to help you right now.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
For sale by owners,
Mhm.
this is the only way we can get paid, right?
For
We
sale
can
by
ask
owners.
this- seller. Well, never mind.
It's the same thing, it's commission agreement.
Commission agreement,
Never mind.
yeah.
Need to say that.
Yeah, I just need to say it.
Okay, we already talked about that one, sorry, came my helper person here, I'm sure you have better things to do. Okay, basically agree not to create, facilitate, or support any non-MLS mechanism for listing brokers or sellers to make offers of compensation to buyer brokers. However, this provision is basically not violated by a whole bunch of things. What does this thing mean? The NAR is saying that you can't be putting offers of compensation on the NAR, on the MLS, like we already know, and that it's going to have to be carefully planned out where compensation can be allowed. The same thing we're already talking about. Is it gonna be showing time? Is it going to be the internet? Where is it gonna be? In a way, yes, it is, it doesn't make a lot of sense right now. Because they put all this stuff out
Right.
without a plan, so they're gonna have to come down with a plan. It could be an addendum. Like I said, what I hope is like it was for us back in
TikTok.
Washington, it is right on the front page of the contract. It's on the price, date, who are the parties, what's the address, how much is the earnest money deposit? Right there, buyer's agent compensation, how much is it, who's paying for it? That's hopefully gonna have to change. It makes it super clear. But of course, we want a place to know if it's being offered, how much it's being offered, and where it's coming from before we get to writing. the
Right.
contract. So it's gonna have to be somewhere else. That's what we don't know. What's that? You could like come up with secret codes.
Right.
You could like, you know, what is it, like hieroglyphics or whatever?
You know how the small fine print,
Smiley
very,
face.
very small.
$2.
Right.
$3
Blink twice if you're gonna get paid.
I don't, that's one thing. Okay, realtor MLS participant acting for sellers to suspiciously disclose or obtain seller approval, payment, basically just if seller's going to pay, they've got to have a disclosure. The other thing to think about all these rules that are being proposed here are MLS participants and realtor participants. There may be an exit of us being members of the Realtor Association. That's another possibility here. The words that are being thrown out right now, numbers that are being thrown out right now is some 30% might be exiting the Realtor Association. That's a part of your KW lawsuit that got finalized, is that we're not gonna be required necessarily, I don't remember the exact verbiage,
To be a part.
to be a part of the Realtor Association, basically. So Keller Williams is even distancing themselves there. So all of these rules that are being proposed that we don't love and don't feel great about are if you're a member of the Realtor Association. That might not even be in our future. We don't know that part right now. I think if there's anything to be a little worried about, and I really don't want you guys to be worried about, that would be on my horizon. Are we in a Realtor Association? Are we not? What are we? But all you can do right now is keep selling houses, put your head down and do your best. That's all you can really do right now.
But it also applies to MLS members too, right? So we would have to get them.
It does.
And
Potentially the MLS, right? That's why there's discussions about that too. The big headline all over CNN everywhere right now is 6% commission is no more. That's a myth. That is not true. 6% was never supposed to be the norm anyway. That's how we all got ourselves here in the first place. That's literally why we're in trouble, is because 6%. I'm not saying you won't get 6% anymore. Go get your 6%. But it being the norm, 2 years I've been doing this. I've not got anything less than 6%. Not impacting my business here. You're in Florida.
Yeah, Florida is scam state.
But who's got a value
Exactly.
proposition and who's got a buyer presentation? Let's work on that stuff. Let's raise our value. Let's get it. Let's go get 6%. Now's the time. If you're gonna change anything, you know?
Houses are worth more now, so but even a year ago, 2 years ago, we were not like flying high with high house prices.
Sure.
So I think we're being fair to the sellers, that's what I think, we weren't jabbing them so hard.
Sure, and that's up to all of us, you know, that's, I mean, that's a, we can't
And
say,
I'm a seller now, and I obviously am paying the buyer agent, but I'm sure, I sure didn't pay no 3%. My house, my money, and I can see why sellers,
I had a seller ask me why I'm a buyer's agent. I tell them, well, you don't have to.
yeah.
Sure. Yep. That was my answer. You don't have to.
It may not work, but
$25,000 now.
might not sell.
Same reason you pay.
This was a couple years ago when COVID hit. They were like, well, why am I paying a buyer's agent? And I said, well, you don't have to. There's no law that says you have to.
You don't have to
But
pay anybody.
they don't, you know, you may not get the buyer you want.
Sure.
And you may not get the amount of people you want.
See, but I think that's the response right there that's hurting us. I think you should say, same reason why you paying me. They need an expert to
I
show them
knew
this house.
legally, I can't tell them they had to. I knew that. So I said, you don't have to. However, that agent is gonna work really hard to make sure everything, I gave them the explanation as to why we do it, but I told them they don't have to.
You're not lying though,
legally,
if
they
you
don't.
say, same reason you're paying me.
I gave
Two
them why.
things is, I really, when you get offers, I point out to you which are these professional agents that get the job done.
And that is
they-
where I went with it. I went with.
But
they work
before
and
you
they're
go,
hard
you
and they're
don't
doing
have
that.
to, I would say, this is the reason why we use professional agents. I would talk about all the.
I get
Hey.
what, oh,
And
again,
say, and then it's up to you what you want to do.
when
don't
I
say you
said
don't
it
have to.
to that client, I said why they should, but I knew legally I couldn't make them do anything they didn't want, so I covered my butt and then explained why it was important, and they paid the buyer's agent 28%.
Yeah, but when you tell that one person, that one person tells that person, tells that person.
But again,
I'm just saying it's
you don't
different
wanna get
answers.
sued in
All right,
court
we can
for
move on.
telling
Yeah.
them the wrong thing.
yeah. So, I mean, you've gotta work on your scripts. As a listing agent, you wanna educate people. Let's educate people on why them having a buyer's agent is important. I personally, I think this is my personal opinion, I don't enjoy being a dual agent. I don't enjoy the liability and the risk. Well, right, you've got the transaction broker thing, which is a little bit of a,
Yes.
there's some blurry lines there too. But
Same.
you know, but I'm saying moving forward, if dual agency becomes a bit more of a thing because of this compensation thing, I don't personally enjoy being a dual agent. I don't want all of that liability. So as the listing agent, I'm explaining the value of a buyer's agent, that they're going to bring, not only bring us a buyer, they're gonna help that buyer navigate through their processes and their situations. No one wants to get sued. If you've ever been threatened with a lawsuit, good for you. If it happens to you one day, it's real scary. No one wants to get sued, including sellers. Sellers having a buyer that has proper representation helps ensure that they don't get sued someday because they misrepresented something or whatever. This eliminates lawsuits. There's a big myth right now, 1 million real estate agents will leave the agent profession. I highly doubt it's gonna be 1 million. Are some people gonna leave the industry? That was already a discussion before this happened, because a lot of people got licensed during COVID when the market was great. There's always, just like there's ebbs and flows of home sales, there's ebbs and flows of how many realtors there are. One thing I would challenge you is not to celebrate that mindset. Let's not celebrate that there might be a whole bunch of people leaving the industry. We should be in not a defensive state right now. We should be in a graceful state, an educational state. We don't want to celebrate a bunch of folks leaving the industry, but of course it will, if that happens. Yeah, we can put that up there.
There was a question about where to find the buyer broker agreement. Are you going to go through that agreement a little bit and tell people where to find it?
Try to, but we are we're already running tight on time because we do have homes.com here with us too, so.
Okay.
We're gonna get through this as much as we can.
Great.
This buyers are liars thing, I heard a colleague of mine texted me this morning, was like, well, buyers are liars. Let's try to stop saying that. Buyers have always been uncommitted though, right? How many of you have been cheated on? I'm sure a lot of you. Like, how many times have you shown people houses and then they go buy with somebody else? This is gonna stop a lot of that. This is gonna stop a lot of, I've been cheated on one time, because I've done this since day one. This stops this stuff. I've let somebody out of this one time, and I've been cheated on behind my back one time with this. I know it sounds a little like, weird, but it does suck, but that's okay. I've kept far more than I've lost because I've had clear conversations right up front. I've used this form. We've been clear from day one on my commitment to you and your commitment to me as your buyer's broker. Have people not bought with me? Sure, like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people cheating on you. This is gonna eliminate a lot of the uncommitment of buyers. When they have to put pen to paper and sign an agreement, it's gonna have a little more weight to it than them just running around to an open house, meeting somebody, and then they write an offer with that person at the open house. And builders are gonna have to be a little more gracious too, so. Click to next for me, thank you. Our main job here, just remember that, the seller needs a buyer is looking for a home, it's our job to facilitate. It's not about the buyer broker agreement. When my buyer presentation, when I sit down to get this signed, I'm sure because a lot of you don't do this, it might, and you might have an opinion of me of like, oh, she's like getting these things signed and what the hell is she saying? And like, she forcing them to sign or whatever. Like, I don't know what your mind thinks about it. I'm happy to meet with you individually or however we need to do it. No, this is about them. If I'm sitting down with Erin and she's my buyer, it's about Erin. This is back here. My buyer presentation is happening just like my listing presentation. I'm going through, first of all, I'm finding out about Erin. What does she want? What are her needs? What's she looking for? What's her family look like? What kind of house is she looking for? I'm here to help her. I'm not here to put this, this is not step one. This is the final step. This is not the first step. I find out about her. I give her my buyer presentation. I talk to her about my value. I don't talk about how long I've been doing this or how many houses I've sold or any of that stuff. It's not about me. It's about my buyer. We talk about her and my presentation. Then we get to this at the end and we talk about, Christy asked me to take a video of it, so I will take a video of it. But briefly, what I say is we've gone through our whole thing. We talk about, it's been really great getting to know you, Erin. Our final step here is just this exclusive agency agreement. We're going to talk about where we're looking for houses at, talk about your pre-approval, your budget and all of that. We're going to talk about how I get compensated. I know this is your first time buying a house, so you might not know how I get compensated. So I really want to be clear with you up front on where that comes from, because I'm making a commitment to you in this exciting home search. No matter how many homes we go look at or how long it takes, I'm going to be here for you. I'm asking your commitment of me. I'm asking you to work exclusively with me. If I take all that time and energy, I want you to be committed to me, because I actually don't get paid until closing. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Then we go into talking about how generally a seller will hopefully offer compensation. If they don't, so what changed in Washington is if they don't offer compensation and it's zero, and there's no budging on that, we did not have to show the house. So right now you guys don't have that. Am I correct on that? You have to show the house regardless of what the compensation is. So that changed for us. If there's a house and it's zero compensation, I don't have to show it. So what I would explain to Erin when that happened, who's my buyer, I would just say, if we come across a property and the seller's not willing to work with us at all, and there's no compensation for myself offered, I'm gonna make sure you're aware of that up front. We're gonna have that conversation. I'm gonna be crystal clear with you. So if you are not comfortable and we don't wanna go see that property, it's gonna be clear up front. But we're gonna worry about that once we get down the road. Now, how would I get paid in that situation? Where is it gonna come from? Is it gonna come from Erin? Those were the questions that then the buyer would ask. Well, if there's 0% compensation, how are you gonna get paid? What's that?
You were gonna pay.
Right, then we would talk about hopefully what's gonna change now, the creative ways of compensation. Either closing costs, putting into the closing costs, adding it onto the price, negotiating within lenders, things might change for lenders, all the different ways that it can be compensated. At how I would talk about it at that point is if there's no because this is back before all this other stuff changed. If there's no compensation offered by the seller whatsoever, that is something you and I can talk about if you're willing to compensate me. If you're not, that's okay, and we'll have that conversation at that point. But I just want you to be aware of it now before we get to looking at houses. I've had buyers pay me compensation. Yes, it is not, I know it seems like a unicorn. I've had a buyer pay me 3%.
And it does go on the CD, it's not.
Mhm. They're crystal clear about it. They know what they're doing. I have had buyers bring cash to closing to compensate me for my services. Fewer and farther between, yes, full disclosure. Probably 5 times I've had a buyer compensate me, only 5. Because generally the seller is going to figure it out, or it's gonna be wrapped in or worked somewhere. But it has happened.
Did this happen when the market was hot and sellers
No.
only wanted money?
No, to me, this happened in 2022, which I believe was a little worse than even you guys were having it. Because our price points were through the roof, and then interest rates were 7%. No, we just about stalled out for about 90 days. There was essentially no sales. It was a really hard time to have these
So,
conversations.
So what you're saying is when the market is hot and the seller doesn't need to give away anything because they have multiple offers, they may not pay the seller commission. Is that what you're saying?
The buyer.
The buyer's commission, I'm so confused these days, yeah.
Possibly. I have yet to work with a seller that wouldn't pay a buyer's compensation.
I will have.
I'm sure there's
conversations
gonna
with
be
the
some.
lender. I mean, if
And
our
lender.
fees are being cut, everybody else fees gotta get cut.
Lenders need to jump in. Lenders need to get strategic. And
Yeah.
I'm sure their lending's gonna change too. The HUD, the Fannie Mae, the Freddie Mac, how this is all gonna pan out, who's gonna pay for what, where it's gonna come from. It's definitely going to shift a little bit here. Yeah.
I see, FHA or any Freddie Mac, I bet they're gonna just put, I think, they're just gonna put a dollar amount on anything, you can get straight 5,000 or something, I don't
Mhm.
see them.
There's discussion of that too. There's discussion of yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot in the waste right now.
Yeah.
Who knows what? not.
It's gonna be wrapped
Um,
around the loan.
One thing we know for sure, and one thing to fall back on, you've got 3 major agreements right now. You've got a seller and a listing agreement. So the seller pays the listing agent. You're gonna have a buyer and a buyer's agreement. That buyer and that buyer's agreement is going to get that buyer's agent is going to get compensated somehow. And then you've got a purchase and sale agreement. Your purchase and sale agreement is held by who oversees that? Essentially escrow, right? Or an attorney oversees and makes sure that everybody does their job and makes sure that they do their job in that contract. They get paid as well. Their pay is in that. Pay
So what
for
if
everybody
the
is
buyer
gonna
and
be,
seller won't pay you?
if a buyer and seller won't pay you,
Show a house after the seller says they won't compensate you with the buyer's like, "I'm not paying you."
no one's gonna pay you. No, I wouldn't do it.
Another agent.
I was working with a buyer for 3 months, the only one that I never got paid on, showing them houses. They went to Lennar. Lennar was doing 0. Lennar would not work with me. They would not make an exception. My buyer was VA. There's been no changes for VA just yet. There was no way to work it out. I'm sure I could have helped them, but I didn't. It was a little sad, like, cause I wished I could have helped them. I'd already been working with them, and especially with the builder, and they didn't have any representation at that point. But I'm not gonna work for 0. So I had that conversation. I'm really sorry. It was a shame. That's what needs to be fixed, because that VA buyer, she was cash, had a bunch of cash in the bank and wanted to compensate me. She said, I want to compensate you like $10,000. Is that worth your time? Yeah. I'll take that. I couldn't take it. There was really no workaround. I probably could have figured something out, but I owned a brokerage and I wasn't trying to get in any kind of legal trouble.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So there's really no rule around when to get this signed, right? It just needs to be signed before we submit it to compliance.
How I used to do this, no, the latest time you could get this signed is as you're writing a contract.
Correct, that's
or
what
a
I mean.
buyer.
So
Yep.
when you're writing an offer, that's when you,
That would be the latest you could get this signed.
and the reason I'm asking is because like, I'd say probably
75% of my buyers I never meet.
That was me too.
Never done
Yeah.
never done a buyer consultation. It's always just, go see a house, write a contract.
Try to get it signed before then. You're gonna have times, yes, there are a lot of times where I got this signed as I was writing the
Yeah,
offer.
that makes sense.
Try to get it signed ahead of time. You could have a Zoom, you could have a phone call. There's a whole slew of things that you could do, even with an out-of-state buyer, to try to get this signed ahead of time. But if that's what it comes down to, yeah.
So, buyer brokers agreement,
Mhm.
we sign it and it's legal document,
Mhm.
right? Let's say you show a buyer a house and, cause technically they can fire you at any time. And, but you're the procuring cause to bring the buyer, but they supposed to pay you the 3%. That can be null and void, even though you showed them the house and they say, well, I don't wanna use you anymore.
Technically, I see that changing too.
Because that
If you're the
happened,
procuring cause.
yes,
You should be, it's happened to me too, you know, on the one that I got cheated on, it was the same thing. I found it for them, they didn't even find it on Zillow, I showed it to them, and they still cheated on me. I absolutely could have come after them. Another big misconception, just while we're talking about this real quick, is that you would go after the agent. So if I've got the buyer and I did that, I showed them the house, I found it for them, then they went and saw it with Latara the next weekend, whatever, and they write the offer up with Latara, but I have this agreement. I can't come after Latara. I can't sue her. A lot of agents think that. So please, if that's you, get that out of your mindset. It's not the other agent. I can't come after her brokerage or her for the compensation in my buyer broker agreement.
Isn't it my duty to ask the buyer, have you signed an agreement?
Ethically, right now with the Realtor Association, yes. So in that case, if they had told Latara, well, we signed a buyer broker agreement with Chelsea. She showed us this house last week. I'm just gonna pretend you're
yeah.
not agreeing with it right now. And Latara was like, huh, that's cool. Well, anyway, let's write this offer up. Like, you can sign a buyer broker agreement with me. That's a little sketchy. She shouldn't be doing that. That violates her code of ethics. What she should have said is, oh my goodness, you're gonna sign an agreement with Chelsea and she showed you this house last week. Let's put a pause right here. Why aren't you using Chelsea or whatever? Well, we don't like Chelsea. She's never available. She never answers her phone. She's always at the beach. We don't like her. Okay, that's okay. I need you to have have a conversation with Chelsea and let her know you want to exit that agreement. I don't want to, this is what Latara should be saying. I don't want to see you liable for compensation or something with that agreement. You need to have a conversation with Chelsea about getting out of that agreement. So she shouldn't proceed in writing the contract right then. She should wait and make sure that they can get out of the deal before she proceeds as that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just asking, like, if the buyer fired, say, oh, we don't wanna work with you, but they still go to the seller, go to see that house without you, there's nothing you can do.
Right now.
But that's the same thing with the listing agreement.
There
If your
is-
seller cancels and you have a 60-day termination, and Kevin goes and gets that listing, technically, Kevin has to pay you the commission. I mean, if you have that 60-day and Kevin listed it before that 60 days is up.
Yep, we have an agent in this office dealing with that right now.
But that's happening on both sides. I mean,
Yeah.
you just gotta
Yeah.
have the agreement.
Right, this is happening on the seller side too, and technically there is something you could do about it. You could pursue your buyer. You can pursue your buyer. You can take him to court, you can send him a threat, you can send him a demand for a portion of the commission from escrow. It doesn't have to be like you go and scary sue them for $50,000. You could send, you know, something to the effect of that, at least a portion of that. So like I've had an agent where it happened to be, they lied to me, the buyer lied to me and told me that they didn't have an agreement, that they hadn't seen the house before. 2 weeks later, come to find out, they absolutely had an agreement with somebody else, and she had showed it to them. And so she came to me, and she was hot at me, and I'm like, I didn't do anything. I offered to pay her a referral. Should I have? I don't know, that's up for debate. I mean, I didn't do anything wrong. I had no idea. They lied. They should have paid her compensation. I did something that I felt like was right because I happen to know the agent too, so I gave her a referral of my money. See how this could get, there's all different ways this could work. It could be anything. Anything can happen. It's gonna have to get cleared up on how this all works, which is the only thing I don't have for you right now. I will.
big concern is I do a lot of open houses.
Mhm.
And I worry about people coming to the open house, walking the house, and you have signed one of these with them and them lying. I mean, that is a huge, or they say, yes, I have an agreement with her. I know my buyer is not paying anything or paying very little, and, you know, you're not with them, and we really gotta
I
get
foresee that.
all of our buyers.
I foresee that getting a lot better for you all. I mean, literally, the Florida number of realtors that are using this agreement is 89% are not using it. We had 85% using it in Washington State before we even changed our rule. So it was the market norm. It was comfortable. When it becomes the market norm here, which it's going to, there's one thing that's gonna happen, is that.
If you explain it though, they feel accountable.
Then you're gonna
Just like a
understand.
listing
Yeah.
agreement. They know who their listing agent is. Be their buyer's agent.
Yep.
Answer the phone, show
I
them
think
houses.
a lot of people
I
go to them, I like a open house because we can go to this, even though we know it's not been approved,
Right,
because the news is being so like out there about it. Well, now we have to.
right.
I don't have a choice.
And tips on
It
this,
chooses our words.
you're gonna have buyers push back on this. I've had plenty of buyers push back on this, especially when I say the whole state of Florida. I have a lot of buyers that are like, well, what if I don't end up liking you? I've had buyers literally say that to me. What if we don't end up getting along? What if I don't end up liking you? First of all, it's a part of my presentation. If you no longer wanna work with me, no problem. I'll let you out of it. I don't wanna work with anybody that doesn't wanna work with me. Like, I'm not gonna hold somebody into, if you don't wanna work with me, bye-bye, that's okay. Something happened, whatever. If you don't wanna work with me, great, no problem, you're released. And that is a part of my presentation, I tell them that right up front. That disarms people a little bit. When I tell them, guys, if we get to a point where it's not working out, you're not happy with me for whatever reason, you don't even have to say the reason, I will gladly release you from this. I do not want to assist someone or force someone to work with me that doesn't want to work with me anymore. Also, if they're uncomfortable with, I have to work with you for the entire state of Florida, okay, no problem, sure. But we set up 5 houses to go see on Saturday. Those addresses of those 5 houses that we're gonna go see on Saturday, we're gonna put that here. So I've done that like a trial run for people. I've had people, real analytical people, lawyers usually, that are like, yeah, I'm not signing this thing to work with you, like, and I have to work with you forever for the whole state of Florida. Okay, but we're gonna go see those 5 houses on Saturday, so we're gonna make this agreement for Saturday then, fine. For those 5 houses, I'm gonna go show you, those are gonna be on this agreement and you're gonna sign it. If I'm taking my time and energy and effort to show you 5 houses on a Saturday, whatever day, you're going to commit to using me for those 5 houses. It doesn't have to be like so scary that they have to work with you for 6 months on anything that they purchase. This can be customized. This is not just an end all be all.
So for like, I got investors who
Mhm.
I'm perfectly fine with them working with you just depends on which project they wanna work on with me. Right before I write an offer, I just put that specific address
Yeah.
only, so that's the
Yep,
only.
I've done that too. I have investors that are like, Chelsea, you're, yeah, absolutely. I've had investors tell me, Chelsea, you're not my only buyer's agent. I'm
perfectly
not
fine.
signing this for you to say I'm gonna work with you on everything. No, Chelsea, if that's how you want me to be, Chelsea, I'm not gonna work with you anymore. And I'm like, wait, nope, I still want your business. I'm just gonna put the address that I'm gonna help you with and a term.
Right, so my fear is the term part of it, right?
Mhm.
That investor, let's say the contract is, it could take 30 days, it could take 2 weeks. The term is what I'm fearful of.
On how long it takes them.
Overcome that, yeah, because these investors aren't gonna wanna be held down to a term. They'll be held down to the actual address, yes,
Mhm.
but the term is different.
It's right here on the
However,
first page.
you enter into an agreement, it holds until it closes. So if you have a week term and we go under contract in a week, it holds it until that closes. You don't have to put a month, you don't have to put 2 months.
Yeah, it
You know,
says
until
this
it goes
agreement
under contract.
will continue in
Once it goes
effect
under contract, Like a listing agreement. once
until
you go
that
under
transaction
contract,
has
it
closed.
expires or
Yeah.
it's
Right.
good.
It's still supposed.
So basically, this is how long you think it's gonna take them to go under contract. How long are you gonna be working with them, helping them search for homes and making offers that may or may not get accepted? 30 days, 6 months, a week? What is that term? Cause once it goes under contract, you're good. You're covered.
This agreement still stays.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a great.
So basically it'll be another addendum for the extension. It's gonna be a lot of
Final
addendums.
page, this is the only thing I can see somebody saying, do we have to have their tax ID number? I really don't want that security number. Personally,
No. If I was you guys,
I don't want that info. That's like, to me, I don't wanna know that.
if I was you guys, I'd be, you fill out the parties, you fill out the term. Type of property.
Doesn't Murray have a
This-
video on
hopefully
Yes.
this is really not- Yeah, Murray has a video.
that? He has a video.
Oh, this one?
Yes.
Or can we write
Yeah.
a contract, but not exactly.
You don't wanna, I would use this, you don't wanna draft a contract, because then you're practicing limited law.
Right, which is, because there's something here in the contract that I don't.
Which don't you like?
that-
There's a lot of
that
things
are
that I
always have to pay.
But this is gonna get changed.
Yeah, that's because that's the part that the buyer's gonna say, it'll be better.
If I'm hiring someone,
Where does it say that?
Yeah, they have
That's
to.
right there. Compensation.
It says it will be credited by any amount the seller pays.
Any amount which broker receives from a seller.
Right, or a license, or a real estate license.
Right, so basically the seller will always.
No, it doesn't say the seller always or have to pay. It just says if the seller does pay,
If the seller
this will
pay.
be credited by that amount.
I don't like that grayness.
Mhm.
It's very difficult to understand.
Yeah.
To work with you. I'm a buyer, I wanna work with you.
Mhm.
I'm going to take probably 40 hours of your time. How much is it gonna cost me? It could cost you 1%, but if the seller pays 5.5, then it's gonna cost you 0.5, but then really how much is gonna cost me?
So
I could not tell you. It's random.
then we need to work on the way you're well, all of you are presenting that. So what's your, do you have a like, maybe, and don't say it, because it's recorded. And maybe you have a bottom line of what you're gonna take on a listing. You have packages that hopefully maybe you present to the seller. I work for, yeah, I take this amount, I take this amount, at this amount I do these things, at this amount I do these things. What's your bottom line?
About the buyer.
Right, but what's your bottom line for a buyer? So again, if I'm back to that situation with Erin, when I'm getting to this point of the contract, because I'm going over it with her, I say, my fee to represent a buyer is 2.5%, and it's going on here. This is gonna get cleaned up, it's gonna look a lot better. My fee to represent a buyer is 2.5%. Now, that's my standard fee for my services, because we just went over my presentation, that's what I charge. If that's being offered by a seller or another party, great. If it's not, it's negotiable. But that's my bottom line, is 2.5%. Typically, I don't take any less than 2.5% to work with a buyer on the purchase of a home. It doesn't have to be 2.5%. I know y'all are snickering. It can be whatever you want. It could be 5, it could be 1%. Hopefully it's not 1%.
Amount of money, yeah.
You can put an amount of money,
Yeah,
sure.
I'd rather have money, I don't like this 2.5, 3, whatever, I want.
You can also, you
I
can
want
do
a
this,
solid
when you were
number.
explaining this before
Like
in one
wholesalers.
of our classes, you explained it as that it might say 3% here, but say you go there and they're only doing 2.5, you can go back and say to them, look, we're gonna cross this out and put 2.5, because that's what they're compensating. And we'll both initial it, and this is still a good document. You don't have to, like, even though we put 3%, you can explain to your buyers that, okay, we're gonna go to this house, they're only paying 2.5. If we go under contract, when you send the contract, we'll change our buyer broker agreement to reflect it, so you know you're not paying it.
But we're
You
still
could-
You would have to do that for everybody.
She said she did. Revise this?
Yeah, you said that we did, you told me we did that.
Revise this after it's signed. You have to all parties initial
Yeah,
it.
and then you just initial it.
Mhm.
So you can make it, you just have to have a really clear conversation with your buyer and say, look, this is what I'm willing to do and this is what I'm willing not to do.
Right.
And
So
be
can I-
upfront.
Can I ask a question? So we're talking about the buyer's broker agreement and compensation, right? So as a buyer's agent, wouldn't I be at an advantage? And I'm not telling anybody to do this, I'm just thinking outside the box. If I just put 0 on all of these, because then buyers are gonna wanna work with me as opposed to work with you because you're charging 2.5%.
What's the point of
Same
putting
as
it
this
out if we're
agreement.
gonna put 0?
You'll never get paid.
Cause for me,
You're gonna work for zero?
I'm not charging buyers. If I have to, I just will work with sellers.
But if you go under so if I'm your buyer and you sit down with me, we have consultation, because this is interesting, so I wanna see how this is gonna work out. So I'm your buyer, we sit down, we have conversation, you tell me you're gonna do zero, these rules change. And I find a house and I want, and it has 0%. And you don't have to show it to me because the rules are gonna change.
Mhm.
What are you gonna do? You're
I'm
gonna
gonna show you the house and I'm gonna tell you. So for me, it's not about that sale, it's about the next sale, the next sale, the next sale. So
Okay.
it's just, I don't.
Would you help me?
Give it.
Would you write the contract?
I've gotten zero.
Would you write the contract for
Oh,
me? Walk
hell
me
yeah.
through the process?
Yes,
You
absolutely.
would take me through the whole process. For zero?
You're hired.
Absolutely.
You would have walked out that door for $0.
Done deals.
Y'all know Kevin.
He has never done a deal for $0.
Move on.
To each their own. That's gonna be your.
No, but what I'm
your-
saying is,
your
if you're a
obligation,
buyer's
you know.
agent and we're obligated to charge our buyers now,
Mhm.
wouldn't it make sense to put zero and have the sellers pay and negotiate that?
They're not paying anyone, that's what we're talking about this whole thing for.
But what
The thing
if that
is,
seller
why
says
should-
absolutely not?
I'm selling your house.
Then that's.
Oh, you
Or I do price the house, or I do show it, or I
Or
do show it. I mean, that's your choice, right?
But that's the risk you're taking by having them sign this when they sign the
Is it
contract.
you gonna
If
help
you didn't
them?
have the buyer sign it at the beginning, then now, and they've already found that house, now you're committed that.
What's the difference between
If you make them sign with zero, you're gonna have to help them.
I guess I'm having a
Even
hard
zero's
time
offer.
wrapping my head around it, only because I don't do buyer's consultations. And and I would only probably do this when I'm sending a contract. Because if I'm working with you and you don't wanna work with me and you wanna work with you, go right ahead, I don't care.
Or you make too much damn money then.
I don't know, you know, bitch in our office.
It's not that, I just don't like wasting time.
I think if you built your,
Oh, yeah, wasting time is right with the contract for $0.
But what if you sell 5,000?
Yeah.
It's nothing.
if you built your business one way or another, if you're heavy seller or you're heavy buyer, diversify. You gotta do both.
You're gonna make me get a cigarette after this.
Not saying it's fair now, but it's just.
I don't even smoke.
The buyer is gonna negotiate that in the seller, in the contract, but, seller contributes 2.5% to my agent,
Sure.
my buyer's
buyers
agent,
that I-
closing.
Right, the buyers that I've had pay me, we've attempted to negotiate with the seller first to compensate me before a buyer paid for me. What should we got?
It's conversation between themselves, but
They
Cheryl
talk
did
about
say, send those buyers her way, Kevin.
Go in the office first before you get it. I'm taking their buy.
I had other slides, but we're really running tight on time because we've got, homeless.com here to talk to us too. What other kind of
You've actually,
questions or thoughts do we have? I don't know what I'm missing here.
You covered all of that.
Okay.
Point is, we do a service, we deserve.
So, let me just ask you that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
What was the timeline? I know the court isn't gonna do the final approval, but when, they're gonna have to have this rolled out by the final approval date. So did they say when they were gonna start?
the court making their
implementing
decision.
some of this
It's
stuff?
already gone to the judge to review to see if he's gonna approve it. Who knows how long that takes? That's a good question. I wonder if they're held to any kind of standard of how long they have to make a decision. I don't know. The current time frame that was proposed by the NAR in the proposed settlement is this July. July of twenty twenty-four.
I know that's what I kept hearing, but I'm like,
No, there wasn't a date.
you know, I mean, they've got nationwide thousands of people who need to be trained. of what
Millions,
rules are.
yeah.
I'll be on the first week, we're gonna have it on July 19th, I promise.
Millions of agents that are
Judges
gonna have
are
to.
not required by law to render a decision in a certain time frame. They're required to think through the thing as long as they need, just like the Supreme Court can do. when
I'd
they
be
want.
shocked if this got approved quickly. I'd be shocked if we were actually doing this in July,
President
but we'll
veto.
see. I mean, we'll see. And by then, hopefully we'll have training. These will have to be revised. We'll get some training and we'll all move forward.
I think there's gonna need to be a training too on how we don't get charged with discriminatory practices because certain people can't pay. Because if we come to that and they don't make these other.
We wouldn't be the ones discriminating. We wouldn't be the ones discriminating. Currently, the government that don't allow that to be compensated, that's discriminatory.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I think it's discriminatory that are.
That's what I'm thinking.
But that wouldn't be
They're not
us, and there'll be disclosures in whatever forms if that continues. If it continues that BA can't compensate, it'll be disclosed in here. Is it not already disclosed in here that BA can't compensate?
I don't
think
So we have a huge thing in Washington, a huge paragraph on our buyer's agency that says FHA/VA cannot compensate. It'll be.
They compensate seller, if they're listing their house, they do, so
Yep.
what's the difference?
Exactly.
Right.
And it may come to that.
That's why there's a lot of realtors who have service member ties that are fighting for these things right now, because it doesn't put them on a fair playing field.
But if you put like, 6,000-7,000 in there, that most likely they'll come up with that money and pay you.
Sure.
When you put
How many professional services do you guys use that you pay a fee to use and you don't complain about it? You financial advisor,
every
a vendor, a lawyer, a CPA. You pay money for every professional service that you utilize. Everything costs money.
Leaving marriage.
It costs money to do business.
On a budget too, that are being.
That's the other part.
Well, come on, guys.
People with
They're
bad
being
credit.
It's gonna get,
discriminated.
they're gonna get
You can't
creative.
afford houses right
Do you
now
have a
because they don't make
presentation
enough
or
money.
I do.
and interest
Um,
rates are high.
So
Group today.
Yeah,
okay.
it's okay.
I have something to say about your presentation because you were incredible.
Oh.
I've been to so many and I want to let them know that I've had the same discussion and you've done it. Okay, yeah, so for I have the computer, if it can connect with it. Okay, that'll.
From your laptop?
Yes, is there?
Head up in a second.
Okay.
She's introducing.
I have worked with Homes.com in Washington State. I actually had a lot of success with it. And I know you guys have just been bought by CoStar, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. First off, I want to say thank you for allowing me this time. Secondly, I brought food. And I'll try to keep it as efficient as possible because I know we ran over a little bit. But thirdly, we have been in attendance to similar meetings like this with Century 21 and Remax and LPT. And she has done an incredible job explaining this. This is muddy waters. We recognize that for. Yeah.
I feel like whew, are we a little more, I feel like we're a little more
I
stressed.
have an attendance list if you wouldn't mind taking that, passing it around.
I'm kind of like, I thought here in my office, we all need a shot.
You get 2 thumbs up.
Yeah,
You do.
yeah.
Thank you for taking on us crazy people.
Yeah, right.
That's literally what I'm trying to do. I want you to be
Right.
successful.
Don't leave
I want
us.
you to be okay. I don't want to see you lose the industry. I don't want to see you lose any money. There's some things I don't know. And I've literally been on the phone with so many people that I thought I could leverage trying to find out as much as I possibly could before I came here to talk to you. I changed my whole training for today. I threw these slides together at midnight last night. I'm trying to help you. I'll do as much as I can.
It makes me happier that he said that because while you were talking, I put on Facebook, if you're a realtor, your brokerage is not talking to you about the current times, call me.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a good time to get good agents who can come into our brokerage because those smaller discount brokerages do not.
I've got a
what's
couple of
going on.
rehab agents about to come in here to talk to me about this, so. Yeah.
On the side. Got it.
We're gonna still get paid. We're still gonna make money. We're still gonna be justified. We're still gonna help people. That's the biggest thing. We just gotta come from a place of service that we're gonna.
I think
There
it's-
you are. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's all it was
gonna
gonna
be
be.
anything is
If we trained individually on paperwork, we did things.
Just so you know, we do have this on Zoom, and the camera's gonna pick you up right about here.
Okay.
So if you
So
wanna
this will
set, yeah, if you wanna set it up there,
Yeah, that's great.
just
Thank
be
you.
careful.
Yeah.
Gets you out.
And you'll also be able to see it.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
I didn't
Thank
do
you.
my job, but I won, but it's terrifying.
It's when you get that call from ABB on and they say, hey, is this your address?
It's scary.
And you have no idea who's
Yeah.
coming after you.
Talking.
Oh, hey, that's
Stop talking.
fine. Okay, thanks again. My name is Brian Stroud. I work for CoStar. CoStar is the parent company of Homes.com, and I will try to be super sensitive to your time because I know you have lots of other things to do. But the bottom line with this news coming out is we are on your side. Our goal is to help brand you as agents so you can connect with more buyers and sellers through a membership, not unlike LinkedIn. So they gave us this presentation and they taught us stuff and we went through all this NAR stuff and it was literally like 150 slides. And I said, there's no way I'm presenting 150 slides to people because they won't have the time for that. So basically I narrowed it down to just a handful because I'd rather go into the homes.com website so you can see some stuff live. And then I got Mi Viejo for everybody. So there's salad, there's rice and chicken. It's one of my favorite places. And by the way, I am local here. I live in Apollo Beach. I've worked for CoStar this is my 7th year. I've been on the CoStar and the apartments.com side. So that's mentioned a little bit in this presentation. So CoStar was founded 40 years ago by our founder, Andy Florence, who was actually at the Keller Williams thing in Vegas. Did anybody attend that? Who was in here? So did you see Andy Florence's presentation?
You guys were everywhere.
Yes, yeah, we had a gigantic booth.
Yeah.
So with that said, he has been our founder and CEO since the very beginning. Our service is a listing service only. We don't take commissions, we don't take referral fees. All we do is help present the homes that you have for sale and branding you as the agent without letting anyone else come in on top of your listings. So what we did is in 2021, CoStar bought the URL for homes.com. It used to exist. It was an okay website. It wasn't the best. So we spent the last 2.5 years talking to buyer agents, seller agents, and the consumers to find out what they wanted in a website. And with that, we bought the URL and developed a completely new address that benefits you. So the way it works now, and I am a believer that you don't have to put all of your marketing dollars into one pot, but we recognize that our model is completely different based on the feedback we got from the buyers and the agents. Is like with Zillow, you have a home for sale, and when it's put on Zillow, it has the contact agent. It says request a tour, but that's not you. We know that agents pay for zip codes. They can be on top of everyone's listing. Your information is not put on there. So here's a quick side-by-side of an example, and I'll go into the actual website here in a second. But for us, you can see we've got the agent here, Jan, and on the Zillow side, you have the request a tour. So Jan's stuff stays solid through, it's static through the entire process as somebody's looking through a house. The listing agent is mentioned in a couple different places. Zillow has the request a tour. Same thing for Realtor. If you have your home on Realtor, you've got 2 things: schedule a tour, which again goes to any agent, but they also have advertising. You can also get a Dirt Devil. When I was on this live, it was the AARP for me. So we do not believe in having any additional advertising. We do not make money by having advertising on the website. So I'm going to jump right in to what Homes looks like, just to give you a quick overview. Bear with me a second here. Okay, so when you go to Homes, this is what the website looks like. We have 4 main components. We have neighborhoods, schools, search property sales, find the best agent. Those are subcategories for everything that anyone would do when they search for a house. So for here, we're just going to put in Apollo Beach, since that's where we're at. And we're going to see all the homes listed in Apollo Beach. What happens when you have a membership is you will be shown with your name, your contact information ahead of those non-members. So everybody in here, if you have a real estate license, you're on here. Your homes are listed on here. But the difference is the membership people show up first. So the amount of views that people have as members is is unlimited compared to the ones that don't have listings. So in this case, we've got Shauna Calvert, who's all over for the Apollo Beach area when I searched this morning. And we've got Keegan, Shauna, Neil. I pulled up one for Riverview here. So if I type in, let's do Riverview. Be another
I think
example.
I have one profile.
We've got Gloria, we've got Brenda Wade, we've got Raquel, Brenda, George, Gloria, and then you can see below Gloria is an example of one that is not a member. So if you have done business either in the past or currently in Riverview, your name and your contact information is gonna show up above all of the 9.
What is that agent's name in brokerage, doesn't it? Like Renee Reeves, is that the
Where do you see that?
290?
Yeah, we keep it on there, but the difference is you've got the picture, it's branded larger, you've got a larger image to see.
Somebody could just Google Renee Reeves, cool.
Right, and you can do that on here, and I'll show you that here in a second. So I pulled up 2 homes just really quick from the Riverview search. We've got this one for Gloria, just so you can see what it looks like. So when I pulled up 4612 Barnstead Drive, we've got her as the listing agent. You can tell she's a member because she's got an orange box around her name. We've got the description of the community, just like, or the home, just like many do. The big difference that we have done is we have sent photographers all across the nation to film. I don't know if the sound's gonna work, but we have done every neighborhood across America. So if somebody, say, is in Texas and they're like, I want to live in Florida, but I don't know what part of Tampa Bay. If they can search neighborhoods, every one of these has a little video. So I'll attempt to play this. I don't know if the sound will work, but if it doesn't, you get, oh, good. You'll get a quick overview. Every one of these neighborhood videos talks about the home style that you'll typically find. I'll let it play for a minute.
The convenience of big city proximity, boasting an easy commute to popular nearby areas, while still offering easy walkability and close to home amenities. The neighborhoods in Brandon are more established with traditional Florida ranch style homes and larger lots. There are also some deed restricted communities with tract style homes and active HOA. There are a variety of public, private, and charter school options in and around Brandon, many of which are part of the Hillsborough County Public School System. There are plenty of parks spread throughout Brandon, like Heather Lakes Park, which
So
has a
each one of these is
basketball
about
court,
2 minutes long.
and more,
So
or
to
late
spare you
evening.
from going through the whole thing, but we have them for Apollo Beach, we have them for Ruskin, we have them for cities in all across America. So regardless of where you have a listing, you're going to have the accompanying video, which is something that I think is unbelievable with all the drone photography. And then below that, we've got the, oh, I wanted to show you the listing details here. So this house has been on the market for 28 days. You can see that here. And it's had 54,000 views. I pulled up the same house on Zillow, 4612 Barnstead. Here's the request a tour button, which we know does not necessarily go to her. And the views are 896. Now, in fairness, I did this at 9 o'clock this morning, so it may have changed, but we've got 896 views versus 54,000 views. That's a big difference to the number of views that this member's home is being looked at. That's our goal for you when you have a membership, is to magnify your exposure. And even if you don't have a current listing, it's going to provide an opportunity for people to search for an agent. I'll go back to the main homepage here. And if we search for an agent, I'm automatically, based on my search history, going to get agents that may represent my needs, but I can also pick any city, and we'll just do Apollo Beach again since we're here. And we're gonna see all of the members that show up. What you'll notice is that some of these, like Whitney, has only had 1 sale in Apollo Beach, but she's getting branded in this area because she did do a sale. Of course, people can do sales in this area and do a filter to say, well, I want somebody that's done at least 10, and that's gonna narrow the search. But what this means for you is that any place that you've done any sort of business, whether it's a buying deal or a selling deal, you're gonna show up in all of these markets. So we'll just click on one of these. We'll click on Whitney.
What's the range?
Any place that you've had a sale.
Like a year ago?
Yes, so we're connected directly to the MLS. So if you've done business in, say, 10 cities, it's gonna show probably the first 6, but it'll rotate too. We take the last 3 years of activity, for buying and selling. So these show examples of homes she sold. Again, a way to connect with her, to send a message, connect with the agent. She's had 126 closed sales, the average price, and then the neighborhoods that she has the most experience. This is exactly what will happen for you when you have a membership. Now, I want to be clear that a membership is part of marketing, but you're paying the membership so that you let us do the marketing for you. So whatever houses you have, we're blasting it out there so that people can see it. Some of these that for Shauna, I'm going to use her as a recent example because she's been on here. She signed up the day after Super Bowl, and she has in the millions of views for some of the homes just because she's showing up first. Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, because I got a HomeSnap account. I think are you guys?
Yes,
affiliated with
so that's a common question that we've had. HomeSnap was something that we purchased prior to the homes.com. So everything from HomeSnap has transitioned into the Homes membership. So HomeSnap will go away, but your login, everything would stay the same. You would just have the basic membership information. That will expire in April or whenever your contract does. But we recommend getting on this because HomeSnap has very limited ability versus what we're doing with homes. Yes.
I have a listing in Waimama, and it's showing on here that it's off market,
Okay.
and it's not.
Okay. So the MLS will update. Sometimes we see in 20 minutes, sometimes we see in a day, but I'll get with you afterwards and we'll take a look. I mean, I will be honest, we rolled this out a month ago and we're taking the feedback from the agents as
Like
it's.
other houses and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it may be a disconnect with the MLS for, yeah. Since we take it directly from the MLS, we have found disconnects with like an open house. They didn't click the button, like the open house doesn't appear, and I guess in the MLS, you have to click that it's an open house and then it'll pull over. So getting back to the PowerPoint, what this means for you, sorry, it goes right back to the beginning. Go directly to this side. So when you become a member, you have access to your analytics. What the analytics will do is show how many people have viewed it. It shows you who your customers are and allows you to make recommendations for other homes that will connect directly to them. You're able to put in comments about those homes that you recommend. They're able to send you feedback right back. We have the app, the homes.com app. You set up push notifications. You have a house listed. Somebody wants to connect with you. You're going to get a push notification to know they want to connect with you. And again, it's only your information. We do not allow anyone else to come in and buy leads on top of your listings. There is no crossover whatsoever. So with the analytics, once you become a member agent, you'll certainly see the difference in the views. And so what else does that mean? We are doing a retargeting campaign. I don't know if everybody saw the Super Bowl commercials, but we did 4 Super Bowl commercials. We are investing $1 billion in marketing this year to make sure people find you and find the homes that you have listed, or to connect with you as a buyer agent so that you can get more listings and sell more homes. So we're retargeting everywhere from the New York Times to CNN, Crate and Barrel, Pottery Barn. My neighbor across the street, I live off of Flamingo. Their house is for sale. They moved to the other coast of Florida, and I took a picture of my screen to show that their house had popped up after I was looking up an NHL story, and I sent it to them. It was like, look, your house is on homes.com as a retargeting ad. So with that agent's information, bear with me while this part gets a little slow. So obviously the homes.com part is fairly new, but we have already surpassed 149. Sorry, this is taking longer than it should. It says it's not responding. We passed 149 million visitors for February. So we already passed realtor.com. We know that Zillow is currently #1. However, our traction has made us the fastest growing real estate portal. It's been all over the news. You can't get away. If you look at Inman did a story in February saying that we were now in the top 100 URLs for all URLs. We have catapulted our way to first. So Zillow is in our sights. They've had -2% growth. Realtor's been flat, Redfin's been flat, and even today, and I know it's related to the NAR news, but if you do a quick search, you'll see comments like why Zillow is fearful of this. And then every one of these articles mentions, however, CoStar and Homes.com is benefiting the agents and the consumers because we are on your side. We want to partner with you, so only your stuff is branded. So I saw there's a CNN article that was published this morning, and I was scrolling through it. I'm like, yep, there we are. Every one of them mentions how we have made this traction to move forward. This is from the February 23rd Zillow's quarterly earnings and ours. Here we are. We've already narrowed the gap. We know it's a long game. It might be a year, it might be 2 years, but their model of allowing people to buy in on top of your listings is something that we don't believe in. So with the Super Bowl ad, we've also put all of our investment dollars into getting on every network you can find. Pandora, iHeartRadio, we're on The Bachelor every night. No matter what you're flipping through, you're gonna see a Homes.com commercial. We're on CNN, we were on the Academy Awards, we were on the Grammys, we will be in the NHL playoffs, we will be in the NBA playoffs, we'll be in the NBA finals, everything you can imagine. There's golf during the day. I was in South Carolina over the weekend at my uncle's house, and he keeps HGTV on all weekend long for the house stuff. And my wife was near me, and I pointed to the screen like, there's Homes.com. I'm right in the middle of the HGTV. So clearly, the consumers know we exist. If we've gotten to 149 million visitors already, and we've only just launched this since Super Bowl, we bought it in 2021, so we've been redeveloping it. So there's been a steady climb already. But now the public has really seen. Part of my experience is from the multifamily side. So I see every apartment community from St. Petersburg all the way to Venice. And when I talk to all those communities, and I've been doing that for 7 years, they all recognize how Apartments.com is the #1 source for searching for an apartment. You guys have probably seen the Jeff Goldblum commercials and know that Apartments.com is the source people use. That's us. We did it with LoopNet for commercial real estate. Some of you may even have a LoopNet account, but LoopNet is where people go to list and find commercial real estate. Also Biz Buy Sell. If somebody wants to buy a car wash, they go to Biz Buy Sell. That is the #1 source to find businesses to either buy or sell. We are the dominant force for listing things without taking commissions.
Was that called Biz Buy Sell, you said?
Yeah, BIZ, Biz Buy Sell, yeah. So in any case, I've heard lots of feedback. The good news is I am not, the properties offices that I've signed up agents already and with the apartment communities, I'm not a salesperson. I'm supposed to be your client representative. All of those apartment communities that I deal with would not call me a salesperson. Yes, I need to get everyone educated so you sign up for memberships and start branding yourself, but I am here locally. I'm not going anywhere. I plan to retire with this company because I've seen the growth of what we've done. So I'm here to partner with you. I talk to the agents that I've already signed up probably once a week to help them with something like, hey, this says off market, let's get that fixed. Hey, we have I put it for an open house today, but it's not showing yet. Well, by the next morning, it's showing prior to the open house. There's gonna be things that we want your feedback from. We did all of the focus groups, but there's gonna be continual things that we see that you'll want to know. And we did that with Apartments.com. The management companies wanted to see, I want to be able to have people apply online. Well, we rolled that out with Apartments.com. So I just want to point out that when we're doing this retargeting, it is putting you front and center when it's retargeting. So if everybody is familiar with retargeting, you shop for something, you look for a new TV on Best Buy, and then the next thing you know, you see that TV popping up, or a pair of shoes or a suit or whatever. We're doing the same thing. The analytics side, when you log into the dashboard, is going to show you where all the retargeting has come from and where it's been most successful with your clients, whether they're looking for school zones, whether they're looking for neighborhoods. It's definitely going to be, it's already the best tool, but the more members we have, the better it is. Now, people ask, well, what about the Brenda Wades of the world that have 120 active listings? We believe in fairness for everybody. When you have a membership, we rotate in every neighborhood who shows up first every 5 minutes. So when you're a member and there's, say, 20 in Valrico, 20 members today in Valrico, they're going to cycle all day long from number 1 to number 20 before it goes to the non-members. So the most common question is, what does this cost? So again, we don't treat it as a marketing source. We're marketing it for you. It's a membership. What we do is we have individual pricing for everybody in here based on your 3-year history. How many active listings have you had? What's the average sale price? How many deals have you sold and helped somebody buy? And that calculates the rate. It is much less than you would think. I've talked to a lot of these buyer agents. One that I know personally, she said, I spend $3,000 a month with Zillow to put in zip codes that I can buy because I want my stuff on top of other people's listings. Of course, we don't do that, but signed her up as a member. Like, now you're going to get connected with people that want you to represent them when they go find a house. And it only costs her less than $200. So what I'm saying is, if you're super successful, it might be a little more expensive. But if you're just starting out, even these, I signed up somebody from Align Right. It's on Apollo Beach Boulevard. She's never sold a house, but she saw the value in becoming a member because now she's going to show up when people search. And with these photos, I encourage everyone, you have a spot on homes.com now. So go up into the upper right, hit that sign up or log in if you had it previously, update your profile, update your picture. And then once you have your membership, you'll start showing up everywhere. So again, with a 40 times frequency, you're going to be everywhere from the Weather Channel to the Guardian to CNN, all these places. Your home and your contact information is going to pop up. So I know that we're running short on time, but I wanted to be able to address any questions anybody might have. Yes.
What's your contact information?
I have cards for everybody, but it's if you want to write it down, it's BSTROUD@CoStar.com. And I'm going to hang out for a little while because I also like me Viejo. And I can be available if you want to sit with me to look up what your pricing is. Because of the Keller Williams event and today's size, this is the dumb sales part for me. I'm just being honest. I'm not a salesperson. I want to help you get connected and I want to be there for you, but it's a 10% Keller Williams discount. So get with me. We'll look up the price. We'll calculate what the 10% is. But again, it's much less than I'm sure you're thinking it is because it's just a membership. We're doing the marketing. We're promoting you and your listing. Did everybody get to do the attendance sheet for me?
Yeah.
Okay, I greatly appreciate that. I have to account for my time too, but I will hang out here if anybody wants to meet with me to find out pricing. Otherwise, I will email all of you to let you know your pricing too. There's 2 ways we can do it. It's a link that I can put in the discount, register with your credit card. So I got salad. I bought a bunch of tomatoes to throw in there. And then we got chicken, rice, and a whole lot of mi viejo bread.
Where is it? God, where's the
Yes. Anybody that wants a card, I have them here.
You know, I need to get mine. There. Get mine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe at the end of
Okay, no problem. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Thank you. No, that was sort of all over the place, but I just want to try.
You did great. I keep seeing your house.
Thanks.
I get.
Thank you.
Hello.
Appreciate it.
And then, come back from a meeting, there'll be some food.
Thank you. I know you
I had a-
So, they tell us.
With a lender, we went to, Starbucks, I got a free.
So it's super easy. I do the dry cleaner there, and, you know,
Okay, I sure will.
Okay, what is your last name, so? I'll look you up right now. Anybody else need a card? Or we can change either. Whatever you want.
I have seen you too. Everybody in Carolina. She said she never been. I was planning to take, happy out to 90 hours.
Okay.
In 18 months to keep my license there, but they do. So, no, they try and get the compensation from the seller first.
Yeah,
And then.
then they go to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you agree.
Yeah.
But before a buyer even starts talking about what they want, you have to stop them and explain to them all the different agencies go through the patient.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna make your business.
Yeah. That's gonna be the pain right there.
Okay.
But you know, like I said.
You want me to look up your price
Still
tag?
gonna look the same.
Yeah, might as well.
It's different, but
All right. I just
It's
have to
gonna
do
be
the
the same
calculation.
I'm not worried about
And that, I should have pointed
Bye,
that out.
everybody.
This is regardless of how many
I already
listings
have
you
a
have.
buyer's
You could get
presentation.
10 more active listings. The price
Okay.
doesn't change.
it.
So-